Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge and the almighty dollar. Is your golf guru bringing you my Tournament of Champions 2021 preview and top plays. Happy New Year. We made it to 2021, and I hope you had an amazing holiday. I am actually going to combine two shows into one here because of just due to time, and it took a while for some of the pricing to come out. So I'm going to do the course overview and then jump right into my top plays. So this show might be a little longer than usual, but bear with me. I think we can knock it out in about 25 minutes. All right, so quickly, let's jump into this. So we are going to Maui, Hawaii, and they will be playing in Kapalua, the Plantation course. You got their designers, who is Bill Core and Ben Crenshaw. There was a redesign of the course in 2019, and that kind of reflected in 2020, where the scores were about 14 under, where you had, I believe it was Shoffley, Thomas, and maybe it was Reed that went to a playoff last year, and Justin Thomas won. And I mentioned that the redesign, from my understanding, the course on a couple things was very kind of soft, and so they were not getting the distances. Also, you had crazy winds that year. And so when we look at what the typical score here is, typically you're looking at, 22 under, 23 under. Last year I don't think really reflects how this course will play. And from a weather perspective right now, it looks like the weather is going to be really, good, and they're not going to have the crazy winds. So I just wanted to kind of mention that. Also in that redesign, they flattened the greens out a bit. They did this to increase the ability to, these greens were always very slow. And so they tried to get the speed up. And with that, they needed to kind of level them out a little more due to the winds. They knew if they had the winds that the balls would move if they were marked. So that's also something to note. This course typically plays, as I mentioned, kind of very easy. Huge fairways. We're looking at about almost 7,600 yards. There is a bit of elevation here. So kind of the key things we're going to be looking at is guys that, of course, can hit the ball a long way off the tee. And you don't have to be super accurate here. And so that's going to bring in some players. Also, as I mentioned, greens and regulation, I don't think is a huge thing to look at, because the greens are some of the largest greens, I believe, almost like 8,000 square yards. So 3-putt avoidance is going to be something we're going to look at. There's 11 par fours. And it says the only par 73 that the PGA plays, and that means there's four par fives, 3 par threes, and so we're also going to look for guys who had a lot of birdie or better opportunities, and 25-foot putts and out. Of course, the tournament is going to be taking place this Thursday, January 7th to Sunday the 10th. I already mentioned the par, the yardage. You are looking at Tiff Eagle Bermuda greens. That was new on the redesign. This is a no-cut event. And the player field, typically, of course, hence the name Tournament of Champions, typically the field's a little smaller than what it is this year. This is an event that they host for all the players that won the previous year, won a tournament on the PGA. But due to the COVID shutdown, that they have also opened it to guys that qualify for the Tour Championship. Some guys that, just off the top of my head, that I know they're not playing in this event. Terrell Hatton is one of them. But there's a couple other guys that have bowed out of this event. But we have 42 in the field, and it's a great field. I think 8 out of the top 10 players. Some past champions. Of course, you have Justin Thomas, who won it last year, as I mentioned. Shoffley won it the year before. DJ the year before. And then, of course, Dustin won it again, I believe, in 2017. And I wanted to pull this up real quick just from past course conditions. And again, it was really just to reemphasize that you had a couple things that were going on last year to get that 14 under score. Because the greens were new, they were very firm. And also, of course, you had crazy wind conditions that affected it. And as you can see, the green speed still listed at Velcro. Overall, I mean, the short of it is, if the winds don't blow, these guys will torch this course. That's probably the simplest way to put it. But I just wanted to bring up, just that again to reemphasize. If you do look at past history, you're going to see 14 under, won it last year. And then if you look all previous, you're going to see, somewhere 24 under, 23 under, 22 under. And if you're trying to figure out what happened last year, that was it. It was the redesign and the winds that caused the the scoring not to be as low as usual. What have the top 10 finishers done very well here over the past, we'll say 10 years? Of course, they need to, as always, typical approach is key, but putting also is key. Trying to think what else stood out. Again, when I brought up the average 3-putt avoidance, the winners did that very well, limited to 3 putts. And of course, you got to attack the par 5s here. That's pretty much standard around. I think the only thing unique here, again, is the 3-putt avoidance. Driving distance here is typically longer. Again, you got elevation, so you're hitting drives, that are going to be going down. They're going to travel a long way. So comparative to a typical average tour event, you're going to have longer drives here. Again, 3-putt avoidance is huge. Greens and reg is going to be higher here because they're so huge. And, the one thing I think that stands out of all this to show is that, gaining fairways off the tee here for past winners was not a huge deal. And so what that means is scrambling is not a huge deal. You don't have the tree lines. You have very wide fairways. So even if, you're a little off, you're still going to be fine to go ahead into your approach. And then I think one other thing I pulled out was unique was sand saves, comparative for winners was huge, a bit of sand on this course. Holes to attack, I kind of mentioned, of course, the par 5s is going to show up. If you kind of go through this, the first hole, this par 4, is, extremely long for a par 4, but I don't actually know off the top of my head, but I'm guessing it's downhill to be 522 yards, but that's one of the tougher holes on the course. Then you got 2 par 3s that are over 200 yards. So I put that in the model. Thought that was kind of interesting. And then you got this number 18, this par 5, that's almost 700 yards, but yet is very scoreable again with the guy's distance nowadays. And you also, again, have some longer par 4s. Again, this one being the toughest hole. Again, 550 yards for a par 4. That's pretty crazy. So all I really wanted to glean out of this was if you are doing showdown or if you're picking tee times, again, we have such a small field. But, they start in the back 9. It looks like to be the easier 9. So again, there's some people think, hey, to get some confidence, I pick the guys going off the back so they can get some birdie streaks going or get some birdies going before they turn into the front. And then, there's been, of course, we've been off for almost a month, but we'll say a few weeks. But there has been some golf. There's been some things going on. So I'm just going to, fill you on some narratives, some things that I'm thinking about. So, some big news just recently came out that Jon Rahm has switched to Callaway from TaylorMade. Now, of course, I'm sure he's been, playing with these Callaway clubs, testing them out over the last, it could be months, but the difference is he's not put these actually into tournament play. And I kind of go back, if you go look at Justin Rose, when he switched to Hanema, just struggled mightily. And I'm not saying that Rahm is going to struggle mightily making the switch, but is there some things that make me a little nervous when you're going into tournament play? And where I look at it is if you start to hit a couple bad shots or wayward shots, mentally you're going to be like, this would have never happened with, my old clubs or, what's going on here. So the trust might fall apart a little bit. Also, Rahm has not played, as far as I know, if I can remember correctly, since the Masters. So he's had a bit of time off. Of course, I'm sure he's been practicing, but there has been holidays and whatnot. So just that in mind. You also had the QBE shootout, which, was, of course, a team event, but is competitive golf in the PGA players. You had Harris English and Matt Kuchar win that. So something to note. And then, of course, not probably as significant, but the PNC father-son, of course, Justin Thomas won that with his dad. And I just bring that up. Justin mentioned that typically he didn't play in that event or didn't do a whole lot. Even I think the Mayakoba, he didn't typically play in that event. But Justin made a conscious decision to keep playing competitive golf because he knew that, when he typically had a month or month and a half kind of layoff, that he wasn't out doing the right things. And so he wanted to focus more on golf. I think that's a positive, of course, with his course history. So, Justin's someone that I'm going to be focusing on and we'll talk about. And then the last two, Dustin Johnson, I don't know. We'll say it's been rumored. That, he skipped the Mayakoba. He committed to the Mayakoba, and then he bailed out. And the rumor was that he was on an island partying for a couple of weeks straight after the Masters. Awesome. I get it. I'd be doing the same thing. But again, he's the highest priced golfer in this, and this is the first time that he'll be playing, of course, since the Masters. That gives me some kind of reservations and pause on him. And then Xander, who's had great success here and great success in no-cut events, but he contracted COVID, I believe it was around December 18th, 19th. He has made it through the window of, the ability to play after the 2 weeks. But also what I understood is that he hasn't got the practice, and really, it did hit him pretty strongly. But again, I'm not saying that he's going to be a disaster or that, no way you can play him. But from my own perspective, I will be fading him. Just seeing what's happened to some of the other guys like Scheffler and guys that did have COVID. And it's not even so much maybe what the effect took on their body, but it's just not being able to play and practice in the regimens that you're used to. So you had the holidays plus dealing with that. It's kind of making me a little bit, again, take pause about Xander. All right. So that's just some news. If you haven't heard, I think some key things have transpired over the last few weeks. All right. So now we'll go into the model. Let me talk real quick. Again, welcome to people that are new to listen to me. If you've been here, you kind of know the process that I walk through. This process might be just a hair different, because, I did put in the last 36 rounds under recent form, but with a shutdown, that kind of hinders, I think, recent form. So we're going to talk about a few other things. So I didn't highlight anyone here. I just wanted to go over what I'm looking at and what I built in my custom stat model. The first thing was driving distance. I'm not concerned. You won't see good drives. You're not going to see fairways gained. You're just going to see distance. And I weighted that pretty heavily because I believe it is going to be a factor here. Is it the end all be all? It never is. But on this course with such huge wide fairways, and again, as we all know, if you're hitting a pitching wedge, versus a 7-iron or an 8-iron versus a 5-iron, that is a huge advantage to get the ball, of course, closer to the pin and, of course, have a shorter putt. So that I weighted heavily. Of course, approach, I think, is, and it showed that on here, and as it always does, is a key stat figure, the guys that can hit it tighter to the pin again. 3-putt avoidance, I weighted heavily, 10%, which is typically, I don't really look a whole lot at 3-putt avoidance, but I do believe when you get in these larger green complexes, it is going to make a bit of a difference. Sand saves popped up as a key thing to look at. Of course, these guys got to go low, so I put birdie or better, weighted that heavily, and birdies. So birdie or better is eagle opportunities, birdie opportunities. It doesn't mean they made it, and so I put in birdies because they actually, it's how many birdies they make. And that's interesting. I just noticed that approach was in here twice, so apologize for that, but it's not going to change anything. And then, of course, with 11 par 4s, I made sure that we understand who does well scoring on par 4s. I did put in the par 3s, as mentioned. There's 2 of them at 200 or above. And then I put these proximities in because these are the areas that I believe these guys are going to be hitting in from because, again, the elevations, they're going to be hitting, they typically, let's just hypothetically say, hit 300-yard drives. They're going to be gaining distance on a lot of these holes because there is a lot of downhill. And, again, you can just let it go because you're not worried about, trying to keep it in the fairway as much as per se as usual. And then also 25-foot putts with an outside. So that was the key things I looked at. And then, of course, on my ranks, no shocker that DJ, Justin Thomas, Rahm, Finau, some of the guys that we know hit it long kind of popped up. So I'm not looking at recent form as strongly as I usually use. There's the 3 key things that I look at. The other one, of course, is what's their history at the course. I do look at that. I do think it matters. The comfortability of playing here. All these guys are going to have a little different weight of how many times they played here. You also got to remember that this is the Sentry Tournament of Champions, also used to be known as back in, I don't know, about 10 years ago, the Mercedes Championship. But anyways, these guys are all going to have some different levels of rounds. I picked these guys out for a few reasons. Lanto just being priced at that just does really well whenever he's below 7K. Cameron Champ's been playing well, and of course his distance, and also the ability. So if the winds do pick up, I think it is key too that you can hit kind of the knockdown stinger drive. Cameron Champ's T-ball already does that. He already hits the ball lower, but gains crazy distance. So yeah, something to think about. Harris English, just recent form has been really good. Again, I mentioned he won the PNC. You also see. Well, I don't know actually what he pulls up on, but if I actually picked him in these, but he's had some good recent form. And then also I look at comp courses because we do have stroking history here. Comp courses isn't crazy. It's something we have to rely on, but I just like to pull it up and see. And so a few comp courses came up. So this is when you put in filters that mimic the course you're playing. So Bermuda greens, over 7,400 yards, easy to hit fairways. I think was the key filters I put in. And who popped up on there? Justin Thomas still up at top. Harris English did again. Cameron Smith. I like Sergio. It's kind of a lower sleeper. I want to say a sleeper, but someone that he just popped in my brain. Guy that hits it a long way, very accurate and great with irons. Now, of course, the putter can hinder. Cameron Smith, who's been playing really well. No shocker, he popped up, and then Champ again. And so again, when I look at all these, the models and things I'm doing, I'm just looking for correlation. And because we have such a small field that, a lot of these guys' names are going to pop on all of these. So it's a little different than usual when I'd be dealing with. So another thing, because of that, I want to go look at, take a step back, and just refresh the brain on the last no-cut events we had. And there's been a few. I didn't go back to the WGC of St. Jude, but you can look at the Masters even, and, even though there was some cuts, but it's so minimal. But I didn't focus on that. But these two events, the Zozo and the CJ Cup, were no-cut events. They were strong fields. And so I just wanted to kind of go back and just glean the guys that, kind of top 10 and where they ended up. Of course, Kokrak, who didn't really hit the ball that well off the tee, but just putted lights out. We also found out later that, he played Shadow Creek in Vegas more than anybody else that ever played there. And that knowledge, of course, somehow came out later. But he did well. And he's not someone that I'm focusing on, but he is someone that, can hit the ball pretty long and can get hot with a putter. Of course, you got Xander, who did well. A couple guys that I think are interesting, Joaquin Neiman and Lanto Griffin. Harris pops up. You got Cameron Smith, who had an 11th. And then you had Victor and Justin. And Victor, of course, had the win at the Mayakoba. So, someone to keep an eye out. And then we go to the Zozo. So the CJ Cup was last. Then the Zozo was right before. Both these took place, if I remember correctly, like back-to-back in October. You got Thomas pops up. Ryan Palmer, I think, is an interesting play. Cameron Smith again, Champ. You got Lanto. Finau, who I think is, pretty good play. Kisner, Reed, Scheffler. So just was looking just to kind of refresh my brain on who did what. And then if you see these greens, it just means they led in that stat category. And then I just kind of highlighted like the guys that, are like the highest in total shot gain over here in tee to green. All right. So that just gives you some more, I guess, visual ideas. And again, for a lot of us, even me, I've been focusing more on football for the last, few weeks. And now it's okay, really diving down the rabbit hole again to really understand who do we want to play on this 42-man field. And then last, I mentioned the Mayakoba. And the main analysis machine that I use, we'll just call it that, is Fantasy National. And I just noticed, I went on there yesterday, and it looks like they got purchased, and they've got moved over on a different platform. It still looks the same, but what I noticed was, for some odd reason, it's just not working exactly how it used to. And it looked like the OHL or the Mayakoba was not getting pulled into results. So I wanted to pull this up and again refresh my brain on who did what. Of course, I knew that Victor won it. The problem was this was we'll call it an island tournament where ShotLink doesn't go to. So we don't have the information on exactly what these guys did and how they won, but I watched quite a bit of that tournament. And what I remember specifically sticking out is Tony Finau was kind of all over the lot, but amazing enough, he still scored and was relevant. But I mean, he was in trouble a lot. And so it was a tight course. If you watch the Mayakoba, my previews on that, I knew that it was going to be guys not so much that hit it very far, but very accurate. This is almost 180-degree switch where we just want guys that can, hit the stingers if the wind kicks up, but guys that can hit the ball long, and they can be a little off target here. And they can be quite a bit off target as far as I'm concerned. But the guys that just can smash the ball and can make some putts. All right. So with all that said, who do I think? And what I did this a little different too, because again, it's such a small field. I'm picking just like 4 guys who I think can win this thing. I'm going to pick from the different ranges about 3 or 4 guys, and that I think will do well at each range. But the key thing is, who am I going with is out of my, the top guys who I think will win. Justin Thomas, of course history is ridiculous here. He's won it twice within the last 4 years. At the Masters, he had a 4th. At the Zozo, that no cut event, he had a T2. He didn't play in the he did play in the CJ Cup, he had a T12. But a lot of guys you'll see, some of their last golf was the Masters. And so it's good to see, just what he was doing. The Tour Championship, no cut event, he had a T2. So everything for me is pointed Justin Thomas. I mean, everything from, what he did at, of course, the PNC, that he played at the Mayakoba. And just to go back, he ended up, at a T12. He had one rough day. So he's actually starting round 1. Crushed the course on Saturday, and then just kind of uninspiredly had a 2 under. So really, a lot of people, and even myself, was looking for him to win that. So anyways, so I like JT for all those reasons. Now, I also like DeChambeau. And the last time we saw DeChambeau, of course, was the Masters, kind of a major letdown. I wasn't shocked. I think there was just so much media hype and him messing around with the 46-inch length, or was it the 48-inch, kind of messing around with drivers. So much was put on him that I think he just mentally kind of fell apart a little bit. But if you go back and look at his history, so if you look at like the Rocket Mortgage, a course that he didn't have to worry. Yes, you can, if you get, and I know the course, I'm from the area, if you can hit it, and if you're wayward, you can still hit it 400 yards, but even if you're wayward, you got a couple trees that, separate, but you're just in another fairway. You're just, it's a course, it's an old course that just zigzags. It's not like one hole is a separate world. And if you hit it offline, you're just in trouble. And at the Masters, as I said, can he take different lines and angles that maybe other guys can't? But if he starts to get off, he's in big trouble. And that's what happened to him. But I'm back on with DeChambeau. Even though I think he's 4th in pricing, which is a little shocking. I was thinking he'd be a little less, but I think he's not going to be, how do I put this? There's going to be some people that's going to have some hesitations because of what they saw at the Masters. If you look at, like I said, the U.S. Open, it was a lot like the same, or even Shriners, where, he had the ability just to, the motor to just the boat race, of course. And so what I'm getting to out of this is that his length is going to be prevalent here, no matter if he's a little wayward. He's a great putter, which sometimes, he gets, a little bit of rap. I say this all the time, but ranked top 10 against the field in putting. I think there's no reason. And, his history here, he's played here twice. He had a 7th the last time, but I think his game is going to suit well here. So I like Bryson. Patrick Reed, he's just been steady performance. Again, if you look at for the last, top 10s, 2 top 10s and 2 top 15s, he's got a great history here. He's got, as I mentioned, he had a playoff last year, had a second before. He's won here, so it'd have been 2016. His game with his putting, I think, again, that's, it's kind of that mix, and Patrick can hit a lot of the different shots off the tee. So, yep, I like Patrick. And then, Victor Holland, he doesn't have any history here, but I've liked what I've been seeing. He is sneaky long and accurate, but, with the win at the Mayakoba, and what really kind of weighing me towards Victor is what I've noticed with Victor is if you get him on greens that are just a little slower, that's when his putter kind of comes alive. And that showed at the Mayakoba. And that's the same as here, is that these greens are just not the typical as fast and not as much undulation you're used to. So I like Victor for the price of 9,200. And it's a little different, Now, I don't typically go with guys that just won a tournament, but it's been, a couple weeks since that tournament. It wasn't like it's back to back. Typically back to back, they're kind of wore out. They've done a bunch of press, So anyways, that's the guys that I think can win. And now to get into at the AK range, who I'm liking. Of course, Finau, I'd put him right there. I think this is an opportunity. Again, I think it fits his game perfect. His last tournament, as I mentioned, at Mayakoba, he was kind of a little bit all over the map, which is not typical for Finau. He's pretty accurate with the driver. For him, I'm not worried about that. I'm more just, he can make some more putts. If you look again at the Zozo, the U.S. Open, the Tour Championship, the no-cut events that he played recently, is done well.
I think Scheffler, I think this fits. Again, you're going to kind of notice, guys that hit it long off the tee, even Joaquin Niemann. I put him in that category. So those three, Cameron Smith, maybe not as long. But Cameron's game, with that T2, I called it that I was really liking him for the Masters. But the Zozo, he had a T4, the CJ Cup 11th. He's played here once before at a 17th. So all these guys I really like in the 8,000 range. And my builds, again, really you can get you got 42 guys to select from. And so I don't even think I did a 6K range because I'm not even going down there. Really, my builds will all be, with the guys pretty much, 7K and up. So yeah, just some notes on that. From the 7K range, I kind of dwindled down because again, you got 42 guys to pick from. I don't want to, be like, hey, this guy's, pretty much picked everyone. But these are the guys that I think can do well in that range. Again, Champ, I've already discussed, great length. The putter is what's going to come down with him. But I think, again, with a little slower greens, it could be do well. And he just has, a good recent form. And he's also had a decent tournament history here with a 14th and 11th. Kisner, I liked what he did at the RSM. Didn't like so much what he did at the Masters. But the Zozo and the CJ just has some decent course history, but he's just a bulldog. Every time he plays, the putter's key here. And, even though he's not the longest, again, I don't think that's super detrimental. I do think it's going to be an advantage. But I do like Kisner at that range. And then Sergio, of course, he had the win at Sanderson Farms. Had a 21st place at the CJ Cup. Now, he's played here before, but it was before the redesign, and it was back when it was in Mercedes Championship. So it's been a while since he's been on this course. But when I first just started thinking of guys that I, think are a good course fit, Sergio hits it, crazy long, crazy accurate, an amazing ball striker. And ball striking is a key stat indicator. I don't think I put it up there, but it was. It popped up. It's just a putter for him. If he can have a decent day putting, but of course, if he's sticking it, 10 feet and in, he doesn't worry about it. So for the price tag, I think Sergio is a great value. Oh, and I guess I did 6Ks. So if I do go to the 6Ks, and you'll notice the high 6Ks, these are the guys. Well, Ryan Palmer should have been the other one, but he made it on here. These are the three guys that I will play. Ryan Palmer has been doing, the Zozo, the CJ Cup. Of course, he didn't play the Masters. We haven't seen him in a while, but it's good form. Again, it's the putter with Ryan. Good iron player. He can get super streaky hot. Lato, almost flip side, not very long, but a great putter. Has played here before at a 13th. And, of course, at the 2 no-cut events did well. And then Mackenzie Hughes, again, off the tee, not the greatest, but the putter is ridiculous. And, the Houston Open and also at Corrales, which is a bit of a comp course, Corrales Putucana. It's very similar island course winds. I think it's past Palm Greens there, but very similar to Bermuda. So in short, that is my plays at the 6K and all the rest. And then real quick, my fades, I kind of already mentioned. So, a couple of these, might come back. I mean, all three of these, but I had, you can't pick all the guys at the top price tag. So I had to make some decisions, and my decisions were this. Again, I told you about DJ. His record, he's won here. He's amazing right now. My thoughts are, though, maybe that he takes this a little light. But then even when he had his, I'm trying to remember, he came off the COVID break, he struggled at the first day and then started, I think he ended up with like a T2. So long story short, I am fading DJ in my builds. Also, he's the number one price guy in this field. For whatever reason, to return the value when you're number one, even though you're going to have 4 days, it just typically doesn't happen. But he's not ridiculously priced. I think he's 11K. They could have put him at 12, 13, but so, can you build with him? Yes. Like I said, I'm trying to make a stand that, hey, I gotta make some decisions. And what I've seen, like I said, with him skipping the Mayakoba, been partying a lot. Maybe his game is not as sharp as it was. That's my thoughts. Xander, of course, it's a COVID thing. And then Rahm, it's the change in clubs. And again, all those things might not affect this at all. And all three of these guys could actually 1, 2, 3 this thing. But I had to make some decisions. I'm just letting you understand where I'm coming from. So those are the guys that I will be fading. Could come back to haunt me. But I had to make a stance one way or the other, and I got to go on the guys I know have been playing and playing well. And that's it. So if you are new, or if you've been listening for a while, if you would please click the like button, share it with anybody you think that would also be interested in how I kind of go about things. If you are new and you haven't subscribed, I would be greatly appreciated if you would do so. And if you want to hit me up on Twitter, I'm at DFS Golf Guru, and there, if you know any questions you have regarding this, or showdowns or cash games, anything you're playing, please feel free to ask me, and I usually check it regularly, so I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And I'm wishing us all the best of luck, and may all your lineups be alive and cash in coming up. And I will probably put one quick show together for a couple hidden gems and projections for tomorrow. Thanks so much.